Death on the Nile, out in theaters after over 2 years of delays, in fact almost 3 years. It was originally scheduled to come out in 2019, postponed firstly because of the COVID pandemic, of course, and then because of the controversy related to Armie Hammer, who last year had been accused of, last year or 2 years ago, I can't even remember, has been accused of sexual misconduct by multiple people, and apparently he's also really into cannibalism as a sort of sexual thing, which is very weird. And then to top it all off, Letitia Wright has also come under fire for her anti-vaccine bullshit on Twitter. So overall, it's been a PR nightmare to even try and promote this film, but here we are, it's finally out anyway. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh, stars himself, Tom Bateman, Annette Bening, Russell Brand, Ali Fazal, Dawn French, Gal Gadot, Cannibal Armie Hammer, Rose Leslie, Emma McKee, Sophie Okonedo, Jennifer Saunders, and Letitia Wright. It's based on a novel by Agatha Christie, and technically it's a sequel to The Murder on the Orient Express, which came out 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I say technically because it really only shares the character of Hercule Poirot and book, so 2 characters. The story is completely standalone, much like the detective novels that these films were based on, so you absolutely don't have to see the previous movie to have fun with this one. Now, I haven't read the original novel, so I approached the film with kind of a fresh eye. Later on, I learned that the adaptation is mostly faithful, with the exception that it changes some characters' backgrounds slightly and merges others, like 2 characters, into one, to kind of streamline the story and make the cast a bit more manageable, which I think makes sense because it's already wide enough. I think it could have gotten more confusing if there were more people involved. Okay, so the story this time around is that Poirot gets invited, together with a bunch of other people, colorful characters, by a couple of rich newlyweds to join them on a honeymoon cruise across Nile in Egypt. And you're not gonna believe this one, there is a murder on the cruise. Someone is killed, I'm not gonna say who, everyone else is a suspect. Poirot begins his investigation. Long story short, the film is decent, very much like Murder on the Orient Express. It shines in some aspects and it has flaws in others. In general, being a fairly enjoyable murder mystery, even though it isn't a masterpiece in any single regard. The things I liked. The characters are well drawn and contrasted to one another, and for the most part well played. Kenneth Branagh is very good. Annette Bening is excellent. I also really liked Rose Leslie, even though she has a small part. In general, she was really believable to me in her interrogation scene. Sophie Okonedo also brings a really interesting type of energy to her performance, and she has a great dynamic with Branagh. I like the interior sets, the boat, the hotel, and most of the costumes, with the exception of a very particular orange coat worn by one character at some point, which is very flashy and distracting, and it ends up playing a role in the plot. But to me, it was too distractingly modern, because it didn't look like something from that time period, but rather like a New Balance jacket that you can buy today. I think also that while there are some pacing issues in the first half, once the film really gets going, it's pretty engaging, and towards the end it plays very well with tension. The things I didn't like, Cannibal Armie Hammer's English accent sounded unconvincing to me, and I have to wonder why they didn't just have him be an American character. It would change literally nothing about the plot and remove the problem altogether. Worse though, it is becoming increasingly apparent that Gal Gadot is not a great actress. Accents aside, I mean, even though her accent is even more unconvincing, it goes further than that. And you know, is she stunningly beautiful? Absolutely yes. By all accounts, she's also a pleasant and professional person to be around. But as much as I enjoyed her in the first Wonder Woman, I've come to think that she just fit that role because of because of its nature, because she was just a naive fish out of water, which is easy enough to play. Because everything I've seen her in since Wonder Woman 1984, the Fast and Furious franchise, Red Notice recently, and now this, she's just been very flat and wooden, and I can't pretend anymore that she's a decent actress. She isn't, unfortunately. I mentioned I liked the interior sets. The same cannot be said for the exteriors. Literally any shot outside looks completely fake and the green screens are bafflingly obvious. Same for any CG, like the water of the Nile. I've seen better things in video games 10 years ago. So that means that the film looks sometimes great and sometimes awful, depending entirely on where the scene takes place. And regarding the central mystery, I'm kind of on the fence, because I can say proudly that I was able to correctly identify the culprit even before the murder actually happened. And it wasn't a guess, I had a justification in my mind which lined up perfectly with the final reveal at the end, which on the one hand makes me happy, as you can see, because I love being proven right. But on the other, I also like being surprised, and the fact that I was able to make the prediction so easily, and it was like my first guess, it's not the right word, but let's say guess. It is slightly disappointing, but the movie wasn't able to mislead me in any way. But then again, the explanation makes perfect sense and it all fits, so it's not like there are any plot holes or anything. So, all in all, as I said at the start, it's fine. It's an okay film. It doesn't break any new ground, it isn't going to be particularly memorable, but it is perfectly enjoyable, especially for fans of murder mysteries. Decent film.